5. Let's look now at Malaysia. The government there is under fire for revoking emergency COVID regulations as cases continue to spike. Hospitals have been overwhelmed. The state of emergency imposed by the authorities there is due to end on the 1st of August. It won't be extended. Zan Azli is a journalist based in the capital, Kuala Lumpur. Hi, Zan.
Hi.
The state of emergency won't be extended despite the fact that cases are continuing. What do people make of that?
Well, the emergency, when it was first invoked, it was because the government gave the reason that cases were spiking, it was going high, and they needed to act fast. And hence, if they declared a state of emergency, ordinances and laws could be passed very fast in order to be able to handle the pandemic. And so far, it hasn't solved the problem because, as you see, as the days go by, the number of infections, the daily infection rate has been increasing. And today alone, it's been record-breaking. It's over 17,000 daily infection for the day. So, yes, you are right. As you mentioned just now, the emergency is about to end in a few more days, on the 1st of August. But the government has said that they are not going to extend the emergency. Well, there are several reasons to it. I think it's because the economy can't take it. And lockdown after lockdown has been going on, and the government has actually come up with a national recovery plan in 3 different stages. So I think that is what the plan is going to be moving forward.
How are hospitals coping?
Hospitals are overwhelmed. There are people are in ICU. There are a lot of people there. Doctors are overwhelmed. They're overworked. It's a bad situation.
And how is the vaccination program in Malaysia? We have heard a number of Asian states which are lagging behind other countries. Where is it with Malaysia?
Well, initially when they started the national immunization program in Malaysia, it was a little bit slow. But as the numbers started to increase, I think that's one, silver lining behind the cloud. We can see a kind of like a light at the end of the tunnel because the vaccination program in Malaysia has been ramped up. It is actually going quite well. Credit has to be given where it's due. And we can see that every day the number of people being vaccinated is quite high. Right now, I think about 15% or even more have been already vaccinated, and we are targeting, the government is targeting that in the next 2 or 3 months, we can actually achieve herd immunity by having about 80% of the population vaccinated.
And Zan, if you look out your window in Kuala Lumpur, what's going on? Is life reasonably normal? What does the state of emergency look like?
Well, we are under a full lockdown, especially near the capital in Kuala Lumpur and the state of Selangor, where the infection rate is really, really high. It's a full lockdown. Only essential services is in operations. Schools closed, universities closed, educational institutions are closed. People cannot travel more than a 10-kilometer radius of wherever they live, and even then, only 2 people from a household is allowed to go out to get essential goods, like groceries and things like that. So yeah, people are not moving around except for those in essential services.
Zan Azli in Kuala Lumpur, thanks so much for bringing us right up to date. Well, let's stay in Asia and get an update on the situation in China, which is seeing its own new outbreak. Our China analyst, Kerry Allen, as always, joins us. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, James.
Bring us right up to date with COVID in China, please.
Well, we are starting to see more signs that China could be on the cusp of a more widespread outbreak. I know yesterday we talked about how cases that had started in Nanjing, it's an international airport, had also been detected linked to this outbreak in 2 other regions. It's now been confirmed that at least in 9 cities other than Nanjing, there have been cases linked to this outbreak. Now, many of these have been brought under control quickly because they've been arrivals at airports, so people have been tested. But there is concern, and these regions are now starting to think about introducing measures because it has been confirmed in Nanjing that the Delta variant is present in the city.
And we've seen that Delta variant sweep through, well, particularly here in the UK and also in America. What kind of concern does China have about it?
Well, people are concerned, yes, because they, they saw what happened in India, which is right next to China. But at the same time, there's been a lot of media very much emphasizing that China's vaccines can handle variants. And people are quite relaxed, I would say, in general, because they have seen how China handles outbreaks since the beginning of the coronavirus, that it locks down areas quickly. There are these massive testing drives to identify if people are asymptomatic. And normally outbreaks are brought under control within a month. And you've got newspapers today like Global Times saying that they're anticipating that the Nanjing outbreak should end by the end of August.
Are they usually right with their predictions?
They are, as they report, yes. I mean, I've seen, for example, there have been outbreaks in Yunnan and Xinjiang as well that, within a month, all of the cases have been brought under control and there are 0 new cases.
Kerry, you've also been looking at the COVID situation in Taiwan. What's going on there?
I have, yes. Things have relaxed very much in Taiwan. So in mid-May, Taiwan went into near lockdown because there were just rising cases. It's only yesterday that the situation has really eased there. So there are 4 rankings of like COVID restrictions in Taiwan, and people in Taiwan have been in level 3, which means that you have to wear a mask outdoors and all essential, or basically only supermarkets and pharmacies are open. But this was relaxed yesterday, so after 2 months, and people can now sit in restaurants again, they can visit malls and spas, and people are increasingly getting vaccinated as well. So there's a lot more freedom now for people in Taiwan than there was 2 months ago.
As always, Kerry Allen, our China analyst, thank you so much. Let us continue looking around Asia. We go now to Japan. That country has seen a record number of daily cases, more than 9,000 in 24 hours. Around 3,000 of these cases were in the capital, Tokyo. You'll know, of course, that the Olympic Games are currently going on in Japan's capital. Here's the BBC's Mariko Oi, who's in Tokyo. She told us about the situation there.
We have to remember that this is the 4th state of emergency that Tokyo is under, and with the latest declaration, the number of people out and about hasn't exactly gone down. It's not a strict lockdown, there's no penalty, though the first state of emergency back in last April, people actually obliged, but by the 4th time, people are rather fed up, and if you ask people on the street, they say, you can't exactly tell us to stay at home when the government forged ahead with the Olympics despite the strong public opposition. So this surge is probably inevitable. It's past 8 p.m. now, which is when bars and restaurants have been asked to close, but you can probably see behind me that some of them remain open. We've actually seen staff members out and about telling people that we are open after 8 p.m. and that's partly because the government has promised to offer them financial support, but it's taking way too long. According to some reports, more than 6 months, which is obviously way too slow for smaller businesses. And it's not just Tokyo. The 3 surrounding prefectures are also seeing a spike in new COVID cases, so they're now asking the national government to declare a state of emergency as well.
Mariko Oi in Tokyo. Some good news now from the Himalayan kingdom of Bhutan, a country which only a small number of tourists can visit at any time. According to the country's health ministry, 90% of its eligible population has now been fully vaccinated within just 7 days. Let's talk now to Tenzing Lamsang, editor of the Bhutanese newspaper in Thimphu. That's the capital of Bhutan. Tenzin, how did the country do it?
Well, it is a combination of faith in science and faith in the government. And basically the ability to get these vaccines on time for the second dose, a combination of these factors and a good rollout system with a basic but robust health system.
Did you have to see, given where people might live in Bhutan, health officials making long journeys to rural villages to make sure everybody got their vaccination?
Yes, of course. We've had health officials working for days in remote areas of the kingdom, and in fact in the more difficult areas we've had our helicopter services airlifting vaccines to the highlands in the mountains. So people have made sacrifices to ensure this high success rate of 90% plus 7 days.
And we've seen in some countries, including the United States, some citizens say that they do not want to be vaccinated. Has that happened in Bhutan?
No, not really, because there is a lot of trust between the people and the government, and as I said, in medical science. And I think the sharing of one important strategy has been the government has been constantly communicating and using the media as well. So people are well informed, and we've not let conspiracy theories and fake news take root, which ultimately affects the vaccination process and leads to vaccine hesitancy.
I understand the Prime Minister is a medical professional. Has that been important?
Of course, not only the Prime Minister, but even the Health Minister is a health expert, policy expert, and even the Foreign Minister is a pediatric doctor. So we have 3 ministers in the cabinet. So you can imagine the technical expertise and the know-how which has gone into this.
And the logistics, not just in terms of finding people in rural areas, but in receiving vaccinations, doses. I know that there's been a large amount of Moderna arriving from the United States. And did they manage to store that properly in Bhutan?
Yes, I think the freezers required were all procured in advance. The logistics and planning were done months ahead of the vaccine coming. And I must mention here that the overall leadership given by His Majesty the King in unifying the country and one of the main reasons why people trust the vaccine is because His Majesty the King has played a very important role in convincing people to come forward for the vaccines. So yes, of course, we've had a good systemic rollout with the necessary infrastructure in place and the funding in place.
Tenzing, is life now normal in Bhutan, briefly?
I think psychologically we are normal, but we are not taking it for granted, because even though we've achieved a vaccination rate of now, today it's 92% for the eligible population of the second dose, we are still wearing our face masks, we are still social distancing, and we are still keeping our caution because we don't want to take any chances with the Delta variant.
Tenzing Lamsang, the editor of the Bhutanese newspaper in Thimphu, the capital of Bhutan, thank you so much. And previously, just to re-emphasize, we have given the situation in Malaysia, China, and also in Japan.